As promised, when we see it, you see it. Let's go to our camera inside the U.S. State Department right now. And a lot of questions starting out a news conference about that leaked document detailing plans for Israel's attack against Iran.
I want to ask about the intel leak on potential Israeli response plans to Iran. Some Republicans yesterday and today are criticizing administration officials for saying they're deeply concerned but otherwise not taking this seriously enough. What's your response to that? And yesterday you said this topic didn't come up in any of the secretary's bilats now that he's in the region and having bilats today. Is that still the case?
So I don't have anything to read out on the Secretary's government-to-government engagements today beyond some of the readouts that we've already made public, and so I would refer you back to there. Look, as it relates to the issues surrounding the unauthorized disclosure, I think many of you have seen the statement from the FBI, who have indicated that they are investigating this. They've announced that, and I will defer to them to speak to it. Certainly, we would take any unauthorized disclosure. It's something that we take very seriously, and it is, of course, incredibly concerning. There are appropriate entities of the U.S. government that are the appropriate authorities for these kinds of things, and we, of course, will defer to them when these things happen. Simon, go ahead.
Can we come to Lebanon?
Sure.
France is hosting a conference to try to make some progress on the issue. Does the US sort of support the French initiative to hold this conference, and what are you hoping will be agreed there?
Well, look, we of course are always eager and to engage with partners on important issues, including what is currently happening in Lebanon. We will have representation at this conference. We'll hopefully be in a place to announce that in the next day or so, so stay tuned on that. But look, when it comes to the Middle East, France has been a vital partner in continuing to marshal support for, in the context of Gaza, of course, trying to get us to a ceasefire. And similarly, we know that they share our goal as it relates to Lebanon for creating the conditions that will allow civilians on both sides of the blue line to return to their homes. And we know that they also would like to see 1701 effectively implemented. I have no doubt that a lot of these things will be talked about, as well as ways in which participant countries in this conference can continue to support humanitarian efforts in Lebanon as well. I expect all of this to be discussed, but I don't want to get ahead of the conference.
You mentioned the U.S. participation, but it hasn't been announced as part of the Secretary's travel. So do you expect?
I don't have any announcements to offer as it relates to the Secretary's travel. The Secretary, we expect, will be in the Middle East region, as we've been talking about this whole week. But we will have participation at a senior level at the conference.
Okay, so if you don't send the Secretary, doesn't that sort of signal some lesser support for this initiative?
Not at all. We will have senior level representation, and I will say that this is something that the Secretary himself will continue to be personally engaged on. He's certainly talking about the issues surrounding Lebanon while he is on his travel. He is talking about it with important counterparts and interlocutors, and whatever our representation ends up looking like in Paris, we of course will be very latched up with the totality of the department. And again, I think we kind of get into this back and forth of whether just simply present somewhere indicates any kind of prioritization, and that certainly is not the case. This is a priority for the Secretary. The Secretary is on travel in other parts of the world right now, but this is a vital issue to him, and we will make sure that there is senior level representation from the United States at it.
And if the other countries there, specifically France, would like to see a ceasefire, your position, as most recently, seems to be that you're not calling for an immediate ceasefire. So, is this administration out of line with European allies, particularly, but allies who would like to see this conflict come to an end?
Look, Simon, I will let European allies speak for themselves, but we know that there's a convergence between us and our European allies on what we all want to see, and what we all want to see ultimately is the effective implementation of 1701, but more importantly, the conditions created so that civilians can return to their homes on both sides of the blue line. And perhaps even broader than that, we want to see the country of Lebanon be able to stand on its own 2 feet out of the stranglehold from Hezbollah. I'm not going to speculate on what proposals and ideas may come from the conference. I think that's the purpose of these kinds of engagements, to have these important conversations in multilateral settings, and we'll let that process move forward. Jenny, go ahead.
I want to ask about the Israeli strike near a hospital in southern Beirut. Does the U.S. have comment on this strike that killed more than a dozen people and left dozens more injured?
So I've seen that reporting, Jenny. I don't have any specifics that I can offer as it relates to that operation. We, of course, will let the IDF and the Israelis speak to the kinds of operations that they are conducting. But look, we have been as clear as we have been that when it comes to operations that the IDF is undertaking to degrade Hezbollah, which we, of course, support, that every possible measure needs to be taken to minimize impact on civilians, to minimize civilian casualties, and that one step beyond that, every possible measure needs to be taken so that civilian infrastructure, whether it be hospitals, schools, anything in that category, that impact on that needs to be minimized as well. We have asked the Israelis for additional information as it relates to this particular strike, but I don't have anything to offer as it relates to that. I think let's also not lose sight on the fact that Hezbollah is a terrorist organization that does have deep-rooted infrastructure in various corners of Lebanese society, and part of that has included Hezbollah co-locating itself with civilian infrastructure. Again, as it relates to this particular hospital, I don't have any insight that I can offer from up here, but this is something we'll continue to engage on directly with the Israelis.
Will the U.S.
So once again, more questions directed there at the State Department on what's going on in the Middle East. We'll continue watching that and more information coming.